Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a pretty massive stack of research to get through today.
We really do.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at what we have on the table right now, this one feels less like a typical sociological analysis and, more like we've stumbled onto a battle plan.
That's a good way to put it.
But before we even touch the documents, I do have a quick favor to ask you, the listener. If you value independent analysis and want us to keep bringing you these deep dives, please hit that like button and subscribe to the feed right now.
Yeah, it really helped us out. And for this topic specifically, you're going to want to stay in the loop because the landscape we are discussing today is shifting incredibly fast.
It really is. So today we are unpacking this book, Feminist End Game. Offending a Woman Will Be Criminalized by Conrad Riker. And let me tell you, I read a lot of books for this show, but this one, it didn't feel like a book.
Right.
It felt like a declaration of war or maybe a blueprint for survival. Riker is definitely not pulling any punches here.
No, he's not.
The premise is pretty terrifying, frankly. We are looking at a future where masculinity isn't just discouraged, it's actively, legally criminalized.
It's a really heavy claim. But, when you look at the source material Riker has compiled, it's hard to just dismiss it as hyperbole.
Yeah.
He frames this whole thing as a collection of what he calls battle-tested truths. He's looking at legal patterns, corporate policies, and cultural critiques. And they all point to one central thesis, which is the capture of our major institutions by feminist and Marxist ideologies.
We hear that term institutional capture a lot.
Yeah.
But Riker really drills down into the history of it, right? Like, this isn't just things are changing naturally, it's things were taken.
Exactly. And just to be clear for the listener, we are reporting on his analysis impartially here. We aren't taking political sides, just exploring the arguments he lays out.
Right, absolutely. We're just looking at the text.
And the argument in the text is that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it's currently designed to extract resources from men while stripping them of their rights. Riker's mission here is to explain how that capture happened historically, but more importantly, to offer an exit strategy.
And we are definitely going to get to that exit strategy because it is fascinating. But first, if you want to get the full picture, and believe me, we can only cover so much in this deep dive, you need to go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books right now and buy Feminist End Game.
It's a must-read if you want the primary data.
Yeah. And while you're at it, follow the author, Conrad Riker, at his Substack. That's conradriker.substack.com. You're going to want to read the source on this one.
Absolutely. So our mission for today is to explore what Riker calls the war on men. We're going to look at the demand for emotional compliance in the workplace, the erasure of fathers, the loss of due process, and finally, the rise of what he terms the unchained man.
Let's start with the workplace. I think pretty much every guy listening has felt this shift. Riker argues that competence, like actually being good at your job, hitting your KPIs, is no longer the main metric for success.
Right.
Instead, it's this thing he calls emotional compliance.
Yeah, it's the idea that your actual performance is secondary to how you perform feelings. The source material highlights this really disturbing pattern where the goal of corporate HR isn't mental health anymore, it's submission.
Submission.
Exactly. The system punishes men not for failing at their tasks, but for enduring silently and refusing to perform what Riker calls emotional theater.
There's this wild anecdote in the book about a manager at Unilever in London. This story really stuck with me.
The vulnerability circle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this guy gets placed on paid leave, not for harassment, not for incompetence. He was put on leave for refusing to join a vulnerability circle where they were expected to share childhood trauma.
It's a perfect example of the shift Riker is talking about. The manager declined, citing his privacy. He just wanted to do his job. But in this new framework, maintaining boundaries is treated as a pathology.
Wow.
He was literally labeled resistant to growth. It's effectively an extraction of privacy. Riker makes the case that the institution now demands access to your interior life as a condition of employment.
And it's backed by data, too. Riker cites a 2023 Harvard Business School study that found men who display stoicism in leadership roles are 42% more likely to be reported for a lack of empathy.
Even if their team is crushing their goals.
Exactly, 42%.
It's what the book calls the stoicism penalty. We used to call that professionalism, right? Being cool under pressure.
Yeah, being the rock.
Now it's a liability. And it gets even more Orwellian. The text mentions a tech firm in Austin that is actually using AI to analyze voice tone in meetings to flag low emotional valence.
That is just terrifying. So if you're just a calm, low-key guy getting your work done, the AI flags you as a problem because you don't sound happy enough.
That's the claim. They aren't measuring productivity, they're measuring emotional submission. As Riker puts it, the system punishes men for having intense stillness. It wants you to perform vulnerability on command.
It's a constant test.
Right. If you don't validate the emotional atmosphere the institution wants, you are treated as a hostile element.
Speaking of intense stillness, that actually leads us right into the legal nightmare Riker describes. Segment 2, Lawfare. And this is where the book argues that existence itself is becoming a crime for men.
The term lawfare is very appropriate here. It's the use of legal systems to inflict punishment. The book details a case in Minneapolis that honestly sounds fake, but Riker shows it's real. A man was sued because his intense stillness at a city council meeting made a woman feel surveilled.
He was just sitting there. I mean, think about the implication of that for a second.
The implication is that the crime is not an act you commit, but a feeling induced in someone else.
Right.
Then there's the Portland Ordinance 18902 case. A woman sued her neighbor because he sighed while mowing the lawn. She claimed the sigh conveyed contempt.
A sigh. We are criminalizing heavy breathing now.
We are criminalizing emotional trespass. That's the exact term Riker uses. If the standard for a crime is how a woman feels about your presence, then due process is totally dead. It becomes entirely subjective.
Because you can't prove you didn't sigh with contempt.
Exactly. Riker points out that this legal asymmetry is baked into the system now, especially with the changes to Title IX and the She Said standard.
This is the idea that the accusation itself is the evidence.
Precisely. The Dear Colleague letters and administrative changes have created environments, particularly on college campuses and in corporate tribunals, where due process is treated as a patriarchal relic.
A relic. Wow.
The assumption is guilt, and attempting to defend yourself is considered further aggression.
It's guilty until proven innocent, but even if you're somehow innocent, the process itself is the punishment. You lose your reputation, your savings, your time. And nowhere is that clearer than in family court. Riker calls it the man tax. It's straight up financial extraction. The stats in the book are brutal. Women initiate 70% of divorces, yet men are assigned child support in 88% of cases.
88%.
Yeah, but Riker goes deeper than just the raw stats. He discusses the fertility incentive gap, citing this revealing interview with a woman named Sarah Kay on the BBC.
This is the part about the state replacing the father.
Right, correct. The argument laid out in the text is that the state has actively incentivized the destruction of the family unit. Through welfare, benefits, and the family court apparatus, the government effectively becomes the provider.
So the husband is phased out.
He's no longer necessary as a protector or provider. According to the book, he is only necessary as a financial host to be harvested by the system.
It's a machine designed to strip assets. You work, you build, and then the state steps in and reallocates it all. And if you think this only affects adult men, you are dead wrong. Riker dedicates a huge section to the war on boys in our education system.
This was honestly one of the hardest sections to get through because it targets the most vulnerable. The premise here is that the modern classroom has essentially become a cage for male energy.
A cage.
Yeah. The education system, which Riker notes historically is based on the Prussian model designed for strict obedience, has been repurposed to essentially neuter boys.
The examples are just maddening. There's the finger gun incident in Florida. A boy gets suspended for playing cops and robbers, something boys have done for generations. It's now treated as a literal threat.
Or the Danish school requiring boys to formally apologize for their toxic masculinity after a regular playground bump. It's the pathologizing of normal boyhood. Riker argues we are teaching boys that their natural instincts, competition, rough play, kinetic learning are actually moral failings.
And when behavioral control doesn't work, they turn to chemical control.
Yeah.
The book cites data showing boys are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD.
And we really have to ask, as the book does, is it really a disorder or is it just a natural reaction to being forced to sit perfectly still for 7 hours a day?
Right.
Riker calls this the drugging of boyhood. We are medicating young boys to force them to fit into a system that was fundamentally not designed for them.
And there's that 2022 Stanford study mentioned in the text, showing female teachers punish boys more severely for the exact same behaviors as girls.
Right. It creates an environment where a boy simply being a boy is seen as a defect. The bias is completely systemic. And this naturally leads to a generation of men who just check out because they learn early on that the game is rigged against them.
It feels like a systematic removal of male spaces entirely. Which brings us to chapter 3 of the book, The Destruction of Brotherhood. Riker talks about how even the few places men had left are being invaded or just shut down.
The men's sheds in Australia are a prime example of this. These were dedicated spaces for men to work with their hands, bond, and improve their mental health. But they were forced to become gender inclusive, which Riker argues destroyed their entire purpose.
Because men communicate differently when it's just men.
Right. Exactly. Riker makes the case that male bonding requires a different dynamic. It's often side-by-side activity rather than face-to-face emotional sharing.
Working on a car, building something.
Right. When you force inclusivity into those specific spaces, the unique therapeutic value for men evaporates.
And the digital purge, too. Apple removing the Men's Brotherhood app from the store. Facebook nuking the Brothers of Steel group entirely. It's like the platforms don't want men organizing or even talking to each other without supervision.
That's what Riker defines as the war on male brotherhood. If men bond, they might organize. If they organize, they might resist. But the text argues it's even worse in the military, which is discussed in Chapter 11 as the war on heroism.
The military stuff is shocking. Riker talks about the inclusive readiness policy versus the actual reality of combat. There's the specific example of the mixed-gender Marine platoon that got stuck on a ridge because of stress fractures.
Biology doesn't care about ideology. Physics doesn't care about equity. But the institutional capture is so deep that the VA is actively rebranding men's health clinics to gender-inclusive wellness centers, and they're removing unit patches to avoid making people uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable in the military.
It's a total inversion of military culture. It prioritizes feelings over lethality.
And the double standard is just glaring. Women-only spaces, gyms, coding camps, business networks are heavily funded and celebrated. But male spaces are immediately labeled as hate groups or discriminatory.
Exactly. But here is where the book really pivots, and I think this is the most important part for you, the listener. Riker explicitly says, this book isn't just about rage, it's about resistance. He moves into the exit strategy.
Yes, the unchained man concept.
Yeah.
I love this part. It's not about fighting the system from the inside anymore. It's about what he calls civilizational opt-out.
We're seeing it happen in real time with the Men Are Done movement.
Yeah.
Men are voluntarily dropping out of the workforce, significantly lowering their labor participation. Riker connects this to the hikikomori phenomenon in Japan and now in the US.
Poor guys just lock themselves away.
Right. It's treated as a mental health crisis by the mainstream media, but Riker frames it differently. He says it's a completely rational response to a rigged game.
If the cost of playing the game is losing your kids, your money, and your freedom, the only winning move is to not play the game on their terms.
Precisely. But for the guys who aren't just staying in their rooms, there's this proactive resistance forming. The Iron Dads Network.
The Iron Dads is fascinating. It's fathers taking the education of their sons back into their own hands. The Wolfpack Summit mentioned in the book is all about teaching real-world skills, shooting, building, survival, completely outside the public school system.
It's about forging the resilience that the schools are actively trying to erase. It's building a parallel educational structure. And they're backing it up financially, too. Riker details the Red State tech stack.
This is huge for the guys listening who are into crypto.
Crypto bros without borders. Riker details how men are using Monero and Bitcoin to build genuine economic sovereignty. They are buying quiet property off-grid land to escape what he calls the feminist financial system.
Off the radar.
Exactly. It's about becoming cancellation-proof. Because if they can't freeze your bank account, they can't control you.
There's also a legal strategy mentioned called the legacy will. This is intense. It's about intentionally bypassing probate courts to ensure your assets stay with those who keep the bloodline and the craft alive.
It's a very hard-nosed approach. Riker advises men to structure private trusts that sometimes bypass daughters or the state entirely to ensure the family legacy isn't liquidated or seized by family courts later on.
Wow.
It's about ensuring that what you build actually lasts and serves the people who truly share your values.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does all of this mean for you, the listener? We've covered a ton of ground today, from the emotional audits at work to the legal minefields, the war on boys, and the erasure of male spaces.
If we synthesize Riker's core message, it's this. The system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed to extract from men. You cannot fix a system that views your very existence as a problem.
Right.
Riker's ultimate argument is that the only winning move is to build parallel systems. That is the path of the sovereign or the unchained man.
It's about radical autonomy. It's about waking up and realizing that nobody is coming to save you.
You have to build your own arc.
Precisely.
Right.
And that brings us to the final provocative thought Riker leaves us with at the end of the book, the legacy audit.
I love that concept. Let's explain that.
It asks a simple, brutal question of the reader. Are you building a legacy that the state can easily seize, tax, or redistribute? Or are you building a legacy that is made of stone? Is your wealth, your practical knowledge, and your lineage secure enough to survive the hostile environment we've just spent the last 20 minutes describing?
That is something every single man listening needs to sit with tonight. Are you building on sand or are you building on stone? And remember, this deep dive barely scratched the surface of the raw data and the case studies Riker has compiled. There is so much more legal analysis and historical context in the book that we just didn't have time for today.
Right. We gave you the overview, the battle map, but you need the full manual. So I'm going to say it again because it is that critical. Go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately and buy Feminist End Game. Offending a woman will be criminalized. Support the independent analysis and get the data you need to protect yourself.
And don't forget to subscribe to the author at conradriker.substack.com. The information he's putting out there is keeping people ahead of the curve.
And of course, make sure you like and subscribe to The Deep Dive right here on whatever platform you're listening on. We're going to keep bringing you the truths that other places are just too scared to touch.
Absolutely.
So, until next time, remember the words from the book. Stand tall, speak loud, and live free. Thanks for listening.